Good afternoon, everyone. I've got a new camera angle, and I don't know if I love it. Well, one, there's my trash on the desk that you can see from lunch, so that's not great. But then also, like, I feel like there's never a good place. 'Cause I used to have it like in between my two monitors here, and that was nice because I could kind of look at both monitors and not be looking like well away from the camera. But also, um, I feel like it took up a space in the middle, and the monitors were separated. And now it's on the side, so it's kind of out of the way, but I feel like I have to look over and here. I don't know. Duncan, what's going on, man? Duncan, do you have any thoughts on camera angle? The other thing I did was put it kind of on a thing that I can move around too. Not that, hey, there's my like other monitor with me on it. It's Inception. I don't know. I'm like trying this out and then we can see. One thing that is kind of nice is I can hide, if I do it right, I can hide, maybe not most of the mic, although that doesn't seem to, I guess it'd have to be here. Anyway, so like for YouTube videos for an intro, I would like turn this way and then I would turn this way to be working on code or whatever, but it seems like I'm looking too far away from the camera. Thing is won't matter as much once coding and stuff. Yeah, I agree with that. I just feel like, I don't know. I changed it. Now I don't know if I love it. One of the things I want to talk about though is Next.js caching. I don't know if Duncan, are you a big Next.js person? Because this is something I didn't really know was happening until I actually had the issue. And it turned out that Next.js is caching very aggressively stuff that I didn't know about. So cool. Duncan, you do a lot of Next.js. How much do you know about Next.js caching in like in Next.js 14, for example? So we had an example on deals for devs. I'll pull out my database too. So we just deployed this last week, which is pretty cool. So we have these deals listed here. And what would happen is I would go into the database. All this is server components, by the way. And so I would go to the database and I would go to the deals and I would make a change, but then I wouldn't, so hopefully this will give you context, Duncan. I wouldn't see those changes take place. And I was really confused. And I was like, I've changed it in the database and I just didn't see it. So what I would do is I'd go into a deal and change the coupon code or whatever. And then I would come back and I would refresh the page and it'd be like, it's still there. And I didn't understand that because my assumption originally was server components were run on the server every time that a request comes in. And it seems like it actually does a bunch of caching stuff behind the scenes. What was interesting though, is it specifically would like if I updated the title, this title wouldn't update here. But if I went to the details page, the details page would have the latest update. So that like, I'm confused why those two routes would be doing something different. So yeah, Duncan, I've since in code, I don't remember where, let's see, page. So I've since added a revalidate function, which I don't love right now. And I'll tell you a specific reason why I won't have to do this in the future. But revalidate, I think this is 120 seconds. So what happens is as a request comes in, it will look to see if the page has been cached within 2 minutes. If it has, it'll take it. If it's beyond 2 minutes, then it will generate the page again, I believe is what that will do. So I don't love that because that means it's regenerating pages every time a request comes in after 2 minutes, which is basically what I thought it was doing before anyway. I assumed it just went to the server every time. So I have this kind of on all of my pages now, so that if I make a database change within 2 minutes or 2 to 3 minutes or whatever, I will actually see that result take place. From there, so the real reason why that has to be there is because we don't have a full admin dashboard to be able to update the deal. So I go to the database. So what will happen is if I make a change inside of here, I'll be able to call revalidate path. So we also have, am I not? Is it not revalidate path? What is it called? Christian, what's up? It's revalidate path, isn't it? Revalidate. Am I not using that anywhere? Oh no, it should be. Duncan, you keep speaking too early. No worries. So you can use a revalidate endpoint if you don't like the cache and validation timeline. So yeah, does that mean I could call the endpoint directly myself to like manually invalidate everything? Also, isn't that function revalidate path? So in my form, under add, there is, let's see, review a deal, added, yeah, review. So let's go to review deal. And then inside of here, or maybe it's when we do approve or not in the dashboard. I have to go and see. Submit deal schema. We submit this, we return. So we don't revalidate there. But see, somehow this data shows up in the admin dashboard, which I'm confused by. May need to get somebody on to like specifically answer some of this. So one of my projects, we have a number of pages we want good SEO on. So we generate, and then when I hit a revalidate API I created, it re-renders the whole page I specify. Okay, so did you manually create that API route and then you call that from somewhere else? And in your API route that you define, you can then trigger the re-render. Is that what you're saying? Or the revalidate? Okay, cool. Kevlar Code on YouTube, what's going on? Interesting. Do you have an example, Duncan, of like the API endpoint that you defined for that? But even with that, I'm still a bit confused because so since I don't have a revalidate in here, when I go to admin and then deals, this page, so when I get all unapproved deals, Duncan, if you had a way to jump on, I'd be happy. Like jump on this stream? Oh, I'm not even showing my, wow, I forget I'm not showing my monitor. That's terrible. I thought I was sharing this the whole time. Terrible. I actually have a very easy way for you to get on. If you want to, I can send you a link. It's just StreamYard, so it's super easy. But like on this page, it wasn't getting cache data because I could see when stuff got submitted in the dashboard. So that confuses me. Also, what are the admin pages? Admin deals page. So this one. I was about to ask, Kevlar, can you make a static site generated or static site blog with Levity and any other CMS other than Netlify? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Levity can work. I've never used Levity myself, but Levity can work with anything. So absolutely. I'm going to send you, I'll send you a link, Duncan, in case you want to join. Hal Murdoch, the legend from Render. James Q Quick, appreciate that. Render was super fun, by the way. I had a ton of fun. Felt like my talk went well. Had a good time. All good stuff. So it's the Pirate on YouTube. What's up? Terry said, I guess revalidate is something where Next.js keeps the content for X section before pulling the updated content, which precisely happen once X second. Okay. Yeah, so I get the idea of, I can also get rid of this. So I get the idea of having the revalidation thing here. But I just feel like without that, I was having a mix of revalidated data and non-revalidated data, or like cache data. How Murdoch could make it to render. You definitely got to check it out next year if you can. It is, yeah, it's one of the best things there is. And really, I could have sworn we were calling revalidate path somewhere, but I guess we're not. Interesting. So why, if I made changes in the database, would it show the changes on the home page? Or it wouldn't show the changes on the home page, but it would show on the details page. I don't get why that would be. I wonder if is there something like specific about the query maybe that's different. Michael said been using payload CMS a lot. It's pretty dope. One thing, I posted a feature request to the GitHub page to make a Zeta adapter. Michael, thinking about you. Love that. Very cool. I have never used payload CMS. I feel like I've heard some other people really enjoy it as well. Yeah, tell me what you love about payload. And Duncan, you're here. What's up?
Hey, what's up, man?
Your audio is coming through.
There we go. Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Man?
Yep.
Let me make sure that this is all hooked up correctly.
Yeah. Let's see a couple more comments. Be nice to see a small tutorial for the new Fauna dashboard V10 with React or Next Jamstack style. I haven't touched Fauna in a long time. So yeah, I probably wouldn't do that. What are there like specific updates, Kevlar, with Fauna that you're a fan of? And then Terry said, cache no store. This will be the option to pull the updated content on every refresh. Next.js cache no store. Have to see. Does anyone have a link to, let's see, cache?
I think this is exactly what I was going to show you. Well, I mean, I've got the example here, or like the real world project, but.
Okay. Default. So where, does anyone know? I would love to see where the documentation is for cache no store or the different caching options. I don't know if you have a link to that. Let's see. There's force cache. Okay. Opting out of data caching. So fetch request. Now it's interesting because fetch request is a different thing too. So fetch request makes me think this is fetch stuff that's happening on the client, not because I'm not using fetch on the server. I'm using database calls on the server. So this is specifically for front end fetch request, I would imagine.
In theory, I mean, Next.js is weird, and sometimes they just do like everything works everywhere. So it very well could be because you can use fetch on the server, like just to drive your API requests.
Yeah, but I'm not because I just have Prisma calls on the server. Like I'm not actually using fetch anywhere on the server.
Mm-hmm. So how are you pre-generating your pages? Are you using like generate static params for grabbing your values beforehand?
No, I've actually never seen generate static params. So in like on the homepage, for example, this is a server component. I call get approved feature deals. That makes the database request with Prisma, and then I display those.
Okay. Well, I can show you how I have done it. I mean, this works, and it's how, like, we've got a fairly sizable site using these things.
Yeah. So do you know, like, just by default though, without this revalidate parameter, if I do nothing and I use a server component, it seems like it's doing caching on that server component, on the data that's loaded.
I would assume so. I think that they tend to cache everything unless you're like opting out of it.
Okay. Which seems like, and I think, did they change this with 15?
They might have.
I think there was a big update, although WebDev said they messed up caching even more. Caching. Okay, so this is saying for caching, fetch requests, get route handlers, and client navigations are no longer cached by default, which is important to know. And so how do we break down those three different things? So fetch request, again, I imagine this is mostly on the client, even though you can make fetch requests on the server. So as we're making fetch requests on the client, and I was reading some of this, like if you make a fetch request to load things on one page and then go to another page and make that same request, it's not making that request twice. So it's in memory caching the responses to those fetch requests like Tanstack query would do, I believe.
Yeah.
And then it just has that ready. So that's one thing. And then they have route handlers. So get route handlers. So
which is like API requests.
Right. API request.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but that still is not server component.
No.
And then there's client navigations where it's caching whatever data you had on a page, it's caching it. You go away to a new page, you come back. It's not reloading whatever data it has.
Yes.
So I would just like to start, if I could, like find the specific definition of here's exactly what we're doing on a route with server component. Well, I mean a server component by default, but like what does it do with that data? Because this doesn't seem, well, this doesn't reference that, but maybe those are 3 options that are turned off, and like server component stuff is still turned on. I don't know.
Here, I'm dropping a link in StreamYard for you. It looks like the default behavior is to cache the rendered result of server-side pages.
Rendered result, React server component payload, and HTML of a route on a server. This applies to statically rendered routes at build time. Or okay, so this is, I started to read this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The default being to cache the rendered result of a route on the server. So that would explain what I was seeing mostly. But I do have one question, which is this applies to statically rendered routes at build time.
Mm-hmm.
Are we saying that server components are statically rendered at build time?
I guess so are your pages, are they dynamic in that, like, are you retrieving like a URL that goes to a place? Or are you manually building like, this is the page for this website, this is the page for this website, or whatever?
Do you mean like dynamic routes?
Yeah. Is this a dynamic route, or is this just like
It's a good question. So that was one of the things that was potentially confusing. So one of the things I mentioned was if I updated data in the database and then I refreshed and I updated this like that conference crazy ticket or something. If I refresh this page, which is just the home root page CSX, I would not see that data change. But if I went to the dynamic route, I would see that data change. So does that mean that dynamic routes are not cached?
I think dynamic routes, you have to define the behavior. So like for our example, we use generate static params because we generate a whole bunch of dynamic routes at build time so that it's SEO friendly.
I don't even know what generate static param. That's a new function for me. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so this is really useful when you're generating, like, say if you have, so again, in our case, the website is called Dramify. We have a bunch of show pages, like it's got episode information and
Dramify, like that.
Yep.
Like this.
Yep, that's right.
Is this your work or side thing?
This is a side thing, but if you click on any of those, like either in the top bar or any of these pages, each of, like this page in particular, we have a generate static params behind it. So at build time, it queries the database and pulls all of the data, and then it will generate a static page.
Cool.
And then I have a revalidate API route that lets me basically say, hey, I want you to go fetch that data one more time and rebuild my page, because we often will have like, we upload a new episode or like the art changes or something, and we need to update that stuff. And so generate static params is good for that particular thing.
Okay. So generate static params is how you take a dynamic route, which isn't cached by default. And so an example of this for everybody would be like /deal/ I have my dynamic ID. So the landing page for each individual deal is a dynamic route.
Yeah.
Then marrying that up with what I just saw, static routes are cached by default. So a static route, and this is our definition of static now, is all over the world, because static means totally different things now than it did a couple years ago. So a static route now, in terms of this documentation, means anything that is not a dynamic route. So if it's a page at index, if it's a page at /about, if it's a page at /contact me, that is considered a static route, which is cached, which would explain why on the home page I saw where I wouldn't get fresh data. But since I had a dynamic route for the individual record, I would see that data updated because that is not cached. And every time someone comes here, it is going to make that request on the server to the database to load this information and then send back the response.
Yes. So how are you refreshing? Like when you say is it just that you're changing the data in the database and then you go and look at your then you go and look at your landing page and it hasn't changed? Okay. Yep. So this this link that I just sent you is about ISR. It's about incremental static regeneration. I love that they give me fancy words I get to say. So this is, I mean, essentially what we use for those show pages, but they have that on-demand revalidation endpoint. This will refresh it. It forces Next.js to rebuild your static page. So if you create this endpoint and then you hit that endpoint with all of the whatever data it needs, it will basically, it would then force your landing page to refresh with the new data.
Cool. One shout out to Chandra and Michael Moore on YouTube. What's up, y'all? Michael Moore was in person at Render. Super fun to get to meet you. Thanks for coming to my talk. I'm looking at like used to the camera being here, but it's not. So there's a couple different things. There is what I ended up doing just as a hack for now was just add the revalidate parameter. So this is going to revalidate this page every 2 minutes, which I don't love, but was good enough to make sure I didn't have an issue to start. There is also this where we can define our own backend endpoint that we can call from somewhere. Like you could, I don't know if you just put it into Postman or something. Like I don't know if you have a button on an admin dashboard or you just dump it into Postman.
I do both. Yeah.
Okay. So you got both of those, and then the important part is you're passing in some sort of secret token that is stored in your environment variables in Vercel. So you pass that along and it does validation to make sure you have access to do this. And then you do res.revalidate. And this just tells Vercel I guess it's,
Next.js, I think, because Vercel's like hosting the site, but
but
you could do this if you self-hosted it too.
Yeah. But who owns the actual cache? Like, where does the actual cache live of the page?
It would live, well, I mean, it would, if you're hosting with Vercel, then it would live on Vercel.
Right.
But it just lives wherever, wherever your files are hosted, there's a cache file somewhere in there.
So that's why I was kind of going the like Vercel route versus Next.js. Like Next.js is making all this happen. Vercel actually owns the cache at that point.
That's true. That's true.
Chris ECBid, what's going on? Ian, shout out to Postman. Ian, how are you liking your new job? And lots of Postman love out here. Okay, so now the reason I don't think I will need this is as we do what we're gonna do. Okay, let me back up. One of the things we have is admin dashboard. So admin/deals. And this is where if you're an admin or rats, is that not what it is? Admin dashboard deals. We just move the routes around. Okay. So admin dashboard deals. On this route, I can approve and reject. Now, I thought I had logic in here. So deals page dashboard deals page. On this one, we have the deals list. We have all unapproved deals. So this is actually one I don't have the answer to. Why on this route, and this route is /admin/dashboard/deals. Why on this route, when I make a very similar query, why am I able to see all of this information show up after somebody submits one? And I thought the answer was because I was doing a revalidation on form submit, but it didn't look like I was. Let me double check that. So on review page, there's review deal. Inside of here, like in theory, this would be the place to go and revalidate the admin dashboard.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was actually doing that. Let's submit, so you get the schema. We call create deal. Yeah, so I'm not actually doing a revalidate. So I'm confused as to how this data is actually showing up.
what do you do? Can we look at the query logic? I would think that that's like the only way that it would is either either like the index page is treated differently for some reason, which I wouldn't think it would be treated differently.
Yeah. So this is the page route.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this could be an answer too. So this is the page route at /admin/dashboard/page. And then
Yep.
it just calls a function that uses Prisma to query all the deals that are not yet approved and then order them by date.
Okay. And then what query do you use the same query to get it on the landing page?
It's a different one because the landing page is get featured deals. So there's like unapproved deals, there's approved and not featured, and then there's featured deals.
Okay. I wonder if there's some sort of I wonder if they treat the index differently for whatever reason. Or I mean, it's like it's possible that there's a configuration difference somewhere. Go back to your index page real quick one more time.
To the root index?
Yeah, to the root index.
So this one now has the revalidate. It didn't like that's how I got it to revalidate. And I don't think I have anything in the root layout. The only other thing is this is an authenticated route. So I forget where it was. Some service, I watched a video, I think it was AWS Amplify, was not caching things based on headers or cookies. And if you had a cookie with a JWT or a session ID or something, then every time you hit it, it would think it was different because you had different session IDs or whatever. So in admin, we have we wrap the clerk provider.
Yeah.
And there should be, then this one. Then under /dashboard, this is where we do our check. So we make sure there's a user logged in. If there is, we see if the user is an admin. If not, we redirect. So there is some logic in here that gates this page, but I don't know how or why Next.js would know about that.
Is this a use client page? No, that's an async function.
No,
that's
still server components.
Yeah, I wonder if just the fact of wrapping it in Clerk is doing something, because this feels like weird edge casey. Like,
well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, actually, now that I say this, how do I wrap this route without this being a use client?
That's a good question.
With Clerk provider.
Layout TSX. And it's in the layout file. It's not like a different file.
And that logic does work, by the way. Michael said you're in cookie hell right now. I'd love to know more about what sort of cookie hell you're in. Chrissy said just finished attending lab 1 of Build Space nights and weekends. Very nice. That's cool. I saw a couple other people post about that too, Chrissy. Super exciting.
Videos for devs. Now I'm pulling up the source code. It's getting serious.
It's getting serious. Yeah, now that I put this out there, I am not sure. Let's see. But I think you don't have to do this in let's take a look at their quick start. Well, Clerk, no, it's a provider. As your environment,
and they do some weird, because you can get access to the authentication information on the server side somehow. I mean, they do a bunch of weird wrapping with cookies.
App router. So they're wrapping everything with the Clerk provider. I wonder if the Clerk provider, it must not be using. Well, fuck, I don't know.
Tabs.
Yeah, I'm confused.
All your UI is, or like a lot of your components are use client, but I've yet to find a route that just fully de-renders into
use client.
use client.
Yeah, so this is, I think this page is the one missing thing. Now, if I can, the one other thing I will have, when we actually have full like a full update on these deals, anytime, and then we should be doing it on approve and reject now. Anytime we do that, we should be running revalidate path on the necessary paths so that it should, like after I approve one, it should then show up on the all deals page.
Yeah.
Michael said I stored site-wide cookie object in a context provider, and it's behaving differently in dev versus production. No fun. No fun. Another question. Let's see. The revalidate function, revalidate path, allows you to purge cache data on demand for a specific path. I feel like I've tried this before and had issues where like I tried it for the route I was on and it didn't do anything. And then I did it to just route and it updated the data on a not route path. Does it update? Does it like invalidate everything from that level on? Only invalidates cache when the included path is next visited. That means calling revalidate path with dynamic route segment will not immediately trigger many validations at once. Fair. The invalidation only happens when the path is next visited. Okay. Revalidate path invalidates all the routes in the client side router cache. Right. Behavior is temporary, will be updated in the future to apply only. So all the routes in the okay. But that's the client side cache. Using revalidate path invalidates only the specific path and the server side route cache. So then I wonder, like, what happens if you need to revalidate multiple pages? Path, either string representing the file system path associated with the data or the literal route segment, for example. Type optional, page or layout string to change the type of path to revalidate. If path contains a dynamic segment, for example, okay, does not return, revalidate specific URL, a page path. So this will revalidate any URLs that match the provided page file. This will not invalidate pages beneath, so it wouldn't go further. Revalidate a layout path. This revalidate any URL that matches the provided layout file in the next visit. This will cause pages beneath with the same layout to revalidate.
So that could have caused it if it somehow hit.
Yeah, but I don't know in my demo, whatever it was that I called like past layout. But anyway. So if you wanted to revalidate the entire thing, you would just call it with slash and say layout, which makes sense. Is it tires?
Someone just burned out on a road behind me. Yeah.
That's funny. On a server action, you can call revalidate path, route handler, same thing. Next.js cached server page with Clerk. So you just starting to provide many of the pages Clerk, and since the revalidate cache is no longer working, it's giving me through.
So it may be possible that wrapping with Clerk is just it's not caching like you'd expect it to.
Yeah.
And so like the cache isn't working on your admin pages, which is causing you to have those values come through.
I may I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna send a DM really quickly to Dom at Clerk. Has anyone else experienced this before?
This is good to know if that's the case. I just started a different project with Clerk. So, I mean, I don't think I need SEO for it, but it's good to know at least.
Yeah, and it's totally fine for it to not be caching that. That's totally fine. I need to understand why it is or why it isn't. Deals for devs. I found out that Next.js aggressively caches all server components by default in 14, but it doesn't look like it's caching in pages that are wrapped in the Clerk provider. Also, how are we able to wrap a layout in the Clerk provider without needing use client? All right, so the question is out there. We'll see what we get. Mike Cavalier, what's going on, man? Let's see. So Mike, we're having kind of a deeper dive talk into Next.js caching. And specifically, what we found out is server component routes by default, if they're at a static route, which is just a like / about page.tsx, that is considered a static route. That is cached by default, at least in Next.js 14. I mean, maybe beyond, maybe 15 as well, because 15 only specified not caching certain things. So cache by default, if it's a dynamic route, meaning like /blog post / or /blog ID, that's a dynamic route, and those are not cached by default. But what I was seeing, I think, and I could actually show this, is this admin page is not cached, even if, well, so the proof of this is I put something in here, and this is all dummy data. This is why we have an admin page. And do this. Go here, and then submit. That will submit, and then I can go to admin dashboard deals, and I will see that actually pops up. So this page is not being cached, and we're wondering if it's not being cached because of it being wrapped in a Clerk provider. This looks like a different. This is not like related to what we're saying. Yeah, okay. So that's different. So the other thing, thanks for the recap. Yeah, absolutely. Mike, if you have any experience with that, let me know. Michael says, anybody have any suggestions for alternative to diff checker? What is diff checker? Is that like a diffing tool? Complete. Is it just does a diff? I think, yeah. Cool. You could do it in VS Code. I don't know if that is helpful at all. Yeah, I used to use an older tool that was already old at the time. That was like 8 years ago. So I'd probably use something more modern than that, which the one you just shared looks cool. So yeah, almost all of these problems will go away caching wise when we update this to be a full like CRUD admin dashboard, and we can fully update the deal and then mark on it when we've made a change to go and revalidate the home path. And well, I guess all deals. I wonder how this one would work. So / not admin / deals, and then we have category. So if you go to / deals, you have page route, which that one probably would. So this is just a static page. So that one would be cached, but the nested category pages, if we go to like this, that one would not be cached because it's a dynamic route.
Yes.
This is helpful.
It gets deep, dude. We get deep in there.
I know. And it's funny because I had no idea. I guess I was just being oblivious that like so much was going on behind the scenes.
I think that Clerk provider does market as use client. I think that they're doing some sort of assumption that is causing it to, because I just removed use client on a page in an example project that I have, and it didn't freak out. And I have a different context provider that's wrapping it that should be freaking out. So I think I'm thinking that they're behind the scenes being like, hey, you don't need to worry about marking the layout file use client if you're wrapping it in Clerk, but then it's actually resulting in an uncached client side.
Yeah, I wonder
version.
What are the chances when I use Clerk for authentication in Next.js 14? Why do I not have to specify use client when I wrap a layout in the Clerk provider component? I'd be amazed if this is actually able to give something insightful. Necessary for this. Working with Clerk, there are a few reasons why you might not need to specify when wrapping automatic client component. Next.js 14, certain components in context are automatically inferred as client components. If Clerk provider or any other component within it inherently requires client-side JavaScript, might automatically treat it. Is that a thing? I didn't think Next.js made any assumptions on seeing if something requires. I thought you had to specifically tell it.
I think you do too. I think it assumes server side unless you specify otherwise.
Yeah, I don't know if that. So number one seems wrong. When you use a provider like Clerk provider at a high level in your component tree, the directive might already be applied at a higher level and inferred by Next.js. Fair enough. Some components like Clerk are designed to work seamlessly with both client and server. Might be providing a hybrid component that adapts based on its environment, reducing the need for. It is likely due to Next.js's intelligent handling of components and specific setup of Clerk. To ensure your best practices, you might still want to explicitly. Yeah, that's really important for people to know, though. Like, I feel like that should be in the Next document or Clerk documentation, because if that is then making the whole, I mean, it makes sense. Oops, I wasn't supposed to show that. If that is then making the rest of that route a client component, that's like something that would be good to know.
Yeah. I'm reading up to see if anybody's had the same issues. And it looks like people are talking about caching issues, but I haven't seen any like specifics.
Fetching. I don't know if I said this. Ritesh said nice content as always. Thank you. I don't know if I responded to that earlier or not. I meant to. So this would be something we could add. We really just need to add. Maybe I'll go ahead and add this. So let's check out our dev branch, pull, get checkout, be feat, add, revalidate API. And this is going to be at /API/revalidate. TS, throw that in there.
Because if this is server side, there should not be any.
Is it not next request? Is that not right? Is it just a regular request?
It's just a request. Let me look at what I have up because I actually have it here. It's a next API request.
Next API request. Response. There we go. Okay, so check the secret. I would call this revalidate secret. Terry was there. Terry had it. Next API request. Thank you. Michael said, could you see if it's a dynamic route if you build it? That's interesting. Let's do that really quickly. So this is going to check the revalidate secret. And then path to revalidate. But you're passing in a property in yours of which path to revalidate, right?
I'll send you. I can just send you this code even because it's.
Yeah, you can send it in Discord.
I'll send it in Discord for you.
Cool.
So yeah, I pass in a query parameter with my path that I want to revalidate because I end up doing a bunch of, like we do a whole bunch of places. We've got like when we update, for example, like the kind of like you with featured, like when we update the featured shows, it programmatically makes this API request so that it updates. Like I just make a post request no, it's just a GET request.
Sweet. Okay. So in theory, if I have that, I could get rid of. I mean, I'll probably still leave it. Like my revalidate times.
Yeah.
Probably still leave it, but
yeah, if you were to like on admin approval or if an admin submits a new deal, then you make the fetch request to this, then it would be totally SEO, like just cached completely. And then at the point at which the data changes, you'd have to just hit this point to revalidate it.
Have I hit this URL before? Did you see it populate this in Arc?
Yeah, I can see it there. You've got.
I don't know what token that is. That's not mine, by the way. I have no idea what that is. Anyway, that should throw an error to say. Oh, did I finish doing the build, by the way? Oh, crap. Oh, yeah, I did finish. Okay, let's go back and look at that in a second. So this, let's see, validate. Is that no API/validate?
Oh, yeah.
Is that just redirecting?
I wonder if you've got
a valid token.
I wonder if that's a. Do you have any middleware set up?
That could maybe
be a Clerk thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Middleware. So public routes is everything that's not /admin/dashboard.
So then that should be okay.
Right? I think so.
Okay. On the real side, I got a 404 when trying to go to a random page, which was the test I wanted to do to be like, is it API set up right now?
And it is API. Oh, I called it re. Oh, interesting. That's what that is. So we have a validate route for validating. We probably should move that. We have a validate route for. Oh, and I didn't even do this correctly. So I didn't do that correctly at all. So this should be revalidate folder, and then that should be a route.ts inside of that. And then I can leave the other one alone. So revalidate. So now revalidate.
Yep. You got I think that's the right value that you wanted.
405.
Oh. HTTP method is not allowed by the server.
Should just be a
function
GET request,
handler.
right?
Oh, you might need to make that that might need to be a GET, like all caps, because this may be an issue on my side. I wonder if I've got it in. I've
Like
got it
that?
in source. This is all capitals GET, and then this is the problem between the two versions. This was originally a Next 12 app, and then with Next 13 they like changed everything. And so
okay.
this is at Pages is I think the issue. Oh yeah. So it's a slightly different route handler. Next 13. There's a slightly different. This you're gonna need the. You're gonna need the request. Okay, I see. Here. So it'd be like this, GET, and then this would just be a request. This would just be a response. Rec dot.
Huh. Yeah, GET plus signatures is different. Okay. Yeah.
And then you make a new URL search params. Well,
route handlers can be nested in the app directory, similar to, but there cannot be a route same level as a page. Fair enough. HTTP methods extended in addition to supporting native requests. Oh, so we may want this to be.
I think
next.
Why did they not have an updated version of this?
How, man? Sometimes I feel like documentation sucks.
It's the hardest part of like actually keeping things up to date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Response dot JSON. So how do you send a status? And what I don't understand though is like on this page, why do you not have one example that does all the basic things that I want? Have the TypeScript types in here, then show me how to send a status and JSON. Because all this is doing is sending to hundreds by default.
I think I've got a
second param for status. So JSON. So JSON data. Oh, is it like a response object?
Oh, see, okay. Let's just do this the easy way. Just move it to the pages directory. You could even use the same exact code and just move it to a different directory. This is why they don't let you do it, because I don't even think that the res.revalidate thing exists on the raw response. So, well, if that man, this is the problem with their major reversioning. Like I got into Next literally like 2 months before they moved to Next 13, and then it's just had to. Everything they do exists between two. Everything they do exists between two versions.
Okay, so there's that. So if you call the JSON function, then the second property is the config object for the response. So there are those. I'll do that right. What's wrong with that? Oh, because I don't have a. Oh, we did a capital response. Capital response. So you can't just send. What do you do? String?
.json? What was it up above that worked?
JSON worked, but this is just a string. It's not JSON.
Oh.
So I don't know. I mean, I could make it JSON. Which is annoying. And this is okay. So then we have to figure out how to revalidate, which probably is just a function. Revalidate next cache. Michael said, sorry to be the ADHD guy, but I started using a phone app called Vercelio. It tells you the outcome and logs of your deployment with built-in speed tests and alerts. Really cool. Is that with Vercelio? Is that your logs of deployments on Vercel? I would imagine docs app building your application routing route handlers. I also feel like this should be a hell of a lot easier to find.
Yeah.
Oh, that is that the page I was on? That is the page I was on. So they send back they send back JSON in all of these examples.
Next request query functions next request. Yeah, query's not even on this page.
Yeah, Mike, I think all the examples on there. And then I don't understand how query parameters
are
not more obvious.
Well,
so it's this one, I guess. Right, so I need to stop doing that. Right, next year, okay. And then we can go. Oh, we don't want query. We want secret. So we need two things. We need secret and path.
Yep.
Okay, so we get both of those. Then we check secret equals environment variable. I use the search params. Cool. That's what I just got to, Michael. And then return response JSON. Okay. And then if we don't have a path, return missing path. And we could just shorthand this too. And then we want to just pass in the path. Does this throw? I imagine it could. Like if we just throw in a random URL that doesn't exist, it'll throw an error.
Possibly. Sure. A better shout out to JavaScript. The errors not as values.
So I don't know. Do we need to await this? Like this returns void. But surely I would have thought that would be an async function.
It does not return any value. Its usage is just plain revalidate path. It doesn't.
Okay, so they never use an await.
Yeah, they don't use await.
Okay, so
give her a try.
Yeah, like that was a lot to get to this point. So
it was.
Let's go back to API revalidate. Invalid token. Nice. If I were to just skip this for now, and I try it again. Path equals, and then
you have to include the slashes, I think. Yeah.
Like the front slash, you mean, or you mean URL encode the path?
The initial slash. So I think what you have right now will revalidate the base
root
route.
page.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I did that, and then if I did slash deals, okay, so it's at least in and back revalidated. Cool. So that works, and then we need to actually set up. I don't have a secret deployed, so we need to actually have that. Other question. So I guess I should go into this and now have our revalidate secret is a string. This is on the server, correct? Runtime next public. Revalidate secret. So it should be it, I think. And at what point does it do that check?
Which check?
For the environment variables.
I don't know. I've never used. I was going to say I was looking at this stuff. I was like, this is a cool little setup because I usually just throw in a .ts like environment variable definition and then pray that I have all my environment variables.
Yeah, this thing is cool. I just can't remember when and where it does this because it should. It may not be until you actually. Well, no, I'm not sure. Maybe I need to actually. Oh, env.
Be like process.env.
Yeah, well, they're now accessible from.
Oh.
So now we should have that. But I thought this would actually do the check like when I started. I thought. Does that now tell me? Environment variables.
Oh, it threw an error.
Okay, so I guess it looks to actually trigger it. I thought this did it at. Does it do it at build time too? I need to check on that. The other thing, someone, I think like Michael asked about this a while ago that I didn't actually look at, was inside of here. I've never actually done this. So under admin dashboard deals, what's the F?
The F.
Yeah, I don't know what. I assume the circle is static.
Yep.
Because that, and then I don't know what the F is.
Is it a functional component? I mean, that wouldn't make any sense. As
Michael's saying it means dynamic. I wonder how they came up with that. That seems to match, right? Because there's like, this is a dynamic route. This is a dynamic route. I don't know. Interesting. I don't know why some of these are subscriber confirm, but that's just a grouping. Huh. It may be. I think it's if you have it under the bracket route. So if you have any kind of bracket route, for lack of a better word.
Because here you've got the group with the subscriber thing.
But that's just a syntax thing, right? Like this doesn't actually do anything.
Do you have a layout file immediately under that?
And I don't think you can. I don't think it would work that way. Like I think this just gets ignored because if you look at confirm, it's just /confirm. It's not /subscriber confirm.
You can, you can do the layout file underneath it, and it's just like it ignores it in the route. But if you need to say if you have application code and like a marketing site, and you want like a different header or something on both of them, if you do the parenthesis syntax and put a layout file directly under it, it'll work for each of those groupings separately, which is why I asked, because then it was like, well, maybe if they're all there, then.
Well, that would account for confirm and preferences. That would explain it.
Yeah.
These are done. Deals these are all static pages. They don't confirm. Then we have API routes. I assume API routes they're just not cached by default, I would think. And then we have, so admin we have the sign in and sign up, which have dynamic routes. So that makes sense. And subscriber.
Do the subscriber pages, are they wrapped in Clerk stuff?
Subscriber page? No. So the subscriber is not an actual logged in authenticated user. It is just, there's a token that gets saved with the subscriber email. So any link that they click from an email will include that token in it. We validate that on their request to update preferences or something. Because it's like if you do a newsletter somewhere, most of the time you don't have to actually log in to, like, you don't have a real account, you just have an email, and then there's like tokens built into the strings that they send you.
That makes sense.
So for preferences, and what do you call that? A grouped route?
Yeah, I think they call it a grouping.
Route group. In the app directory, nested folders normally maps URL paths. However, you can mark a folder as a route group to prevent the folder from being excluded in the route's URL. Yes. This allows you to organize route segments and project files into logical groups without affecting the URL. Route groups are useful for organizing routes into groups. Yes. Enabling nested layouts in the same route segment, creating multiple nested layouts in the same segment, including multiple route layouts, adding a layout to a subset of routes in common. Okay, so then those are not cached either. It looks like, since preferences, but I still don't know. Let me hide my screen because I'm gonna go back to DMs for a second because Dom emailed me back, or emailed me, sent me a DM back. Hold on. So you're currently using Clerk provider and layout, not explicitly saying use client, and in the docs it doesn't say to, and not at the root. Not doing it at the root. I moved it to wrap my admin routes so that you don't have to dynamically render. Check below. Terry, what are you saying? Dynamic. Check. Yeah. Terry, what are you saying to check below? Okay. So interesting. So we still, API makes sense. All the rest of this makes sense. These are dynamic routes, so those are going to be not cached regardless. Although those actually, well, no, because they have to handle different things. Admin dashboard, deals, and subscribers. I don't know. But I did make a lot of below the routes. It says, what the F? Oh. Huh. Thanks, Michael. Yeah. If I had to scroll down just a tiny bit. So F dynamic, server rendered on demand, pre-rendered as static content. Cool. Clay, what's going on? Working on deals for devs. We're talking about caching in Next.js and how I didn't know a lot of this stuff was going on. And now I'm trying to really understand when and where and why Next.js is caching stuff.
I wonder if your index page, your base route is somehow marked as static, because it feels like that's the exception, not the rule.
With the root route?
Yeah, your root.
No, I think that one, I think the root one makes sense because it's not a dynamic path at all. So with the exception of this thing, I think that should be cached based on the definition.
That's true.
So I think that one does make sense.
So I think the conclusion we came to is it works because, and
I think I understand a lot more than I did before. The only question I have is, how does Clerk affect whether or not these routes are cached?
I'm wondering if they're not, or if it's not. Like, it's a possibility that was a quick assumption that we were looking at. But if it's everything that's not marked as dynamic in some way or isn't doing some amount of processing, is because here you're just getting data and displaying it.
Mm-hmm.
In some of the other places, you're like doing checks and getting specific query parameters and like, what was it here? I was just looking at you're using like the search parameters value on the confirm page. So it might just be that Next is smart enough to say, oh, they need search parameters. This should probably be non-static.
So you're wondering if, like, I was thinking because this had a group route, maybe it's looking at
params, and both of them have search params. Yeah.
Both of them have search params. That may be a good point. Next.js cache route with search params.
I wonder if you were to add, like, as a test, if you went on your home, your root, and added those search params and just like displayed it on the page in your local environment or rebuild it, I wonder if you would get a non-static page.
So Terry's saying 2 types, one with ID and one with slug. Are you talking about different options to trigger dynamic routes? So I think we can test that. So if we go to the confirm page and we get rid of all of this, I want to make sure I undo this. Let's just say it doesn't take any params. We don't worry about this. We don't worry about this. And then we comment all of this out. And then inside of here, we just say, hey, well, if it's automatically making this a dynamic page because we are rendering, or because we were accessing search params, what we're saying is now if we were to run a build, this should be a static page because we're no longer referencing search params.
And it could be search params, and now looking at it, it could also be the inclusion of Next navigation. It could be one of those two things.
Next navigation. Okay, so I'm not using either one now. Function. I'm not actually calling it, but it does have the import listed up there.
It's built, so it's building right now. Okay, we'll see. We'll see whether or not that affects it. We're using the scientific method, everybody.
Yeah. Let me hide this really quickly too, and I'll add to my env what did I call that thing? Revalidate secret. And I can just put in something gibberish for now. Now we got to start the whole build process over. This is good. It's good debugging. Did you send me another? Oh, you're good. Yeah. We spent more time on this than I expected, which is good because it needed this much. So I may do something for a few minutes after this, but I'm mostly good with what we're doing. So now confirm is a static page.
Okay. We figured it out. So they're just doing some smart stuff that also is incredibly confusing when you
like if you don't know that's a lot to... All right, is that back to... Okay, that should be back to what it was. Wow.
So I think you have your answer there. For these routes are server side rendered on demand, and then main route is. So then did you get it set up so you could try your revalidate function? See, like or you could hit your revalidate endpoint?
Yeah. What did we want to do with that? Oh, we did test it earlier, but then I moved to environment variable. That's the only thing I changed.
Oh, okay.
I added that. So we were able to trigger that endpoint earlier by commenting out the check for the API key, or the token or whatever. Then I added that to my env schema, and now
I just wanted to see if it actually regenerated, because I don't think we looked at that.
How would we know if it actually would it log it?
So I would look at like open your base route, like your just slash, and like see what is there, and then update it somewhere, and then hit that revalidate endpoint and see if the base route updates the data.
So I'm curious about that, because I don't know if all that caching takes place locally.
It does to an extent, I think.
Okay. Let's test that out first. Jay Barrios, what's up? What's up, man? New side view. Yeah, I'm not 100% sold on it, because I feel like I'm looking too far away from the camera, but it lets my monitors be butt up together. I don't know. We'll see. So let me go over to do I not have a Zeta tab open? I don't know why it puts that down so far. All right, so let's go into the test database. So in dev, we can go to a deal, and let's just say my good deal, wherever that is. My good deal updated. Okay, so that's changed the database. So if I refresh, see, I don't know if we can replicate that cache. So that's why it surprised me, is because it didn't do any of that locally. DJ Dev, what's going on, man? Working caching locally, not the easiest thing. I agree. Yes, 100%. So if I did, I don't know, does it show anything in the logs when it revalidates? Because that would be nice. So if I do a revalidate, then I do a path of root, it should say invalid token. And let me go and copy what it's.
Here's the thing you could try. You could build it and run the build, rather than, because the built version and the dev version, I think they do caching differently.
When you run the built version, does it actually run like the Node.js server as well?
Yeah,
it does. Okay. Let me try this really quickly. So path equals that, and token equals this tiny dumb string. No, the token should be it. Is it called, what do I call it? Revalidate route. Secret, not token. And we don't want, okay, revalidated true. So it at least says it does it. I don't know.
Yeah, because I think so basically Vercel on their side, they're literally just running npm run build and then npm run start. And so that's the expected behavior, is that it'll serve it up to whatever port you have it at.
Yeah.
And that should be the duplicate. But to your point, like now thinking back to it, when I'm running stuff locally for Dramify, I don't have the show doesn't cache between every single thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll run a build, and then we'll run it and see. All right. So let's do npm run start, you said?
Yeah.
And that runs also at 3000. So can I see? Okay. So that loads. And then if I go, so that should say updated. And then if I go and change this back to not updated, and then I refresh this page, that still is cached.
Okay.
So now if I go to API/revalidate, I think it was this one. So it says it revalidated. And then if I go here, Sweet.
Hey.
Okay, so then let's try this one more time with my good deal updated. So this will not update. This will show updated because it's a dynamic path.
Yeah.
And we still just have the question mark of how does Clerk affect, which Clerk does the Clerk provider look at? It probably looks at like search params or something. So if Next.js is doing that intelligence to automatically make it a dynamic route if it's using search params, then that would explain it. But that seems like such an obvious thing that like is worth noting somewhere.
You would think, and then I wonder if they're just like, oh no, I mean, this isn't an issue, you know. It's not like people run production environments of like massive companies on this product or whatever.
That's interesting. Clay said, how you been? Been busy getting ready for, actually the other thing I wanted to show is I thought I had this open, is these slides. Getting ready for a talk next week on rendering strategies, basically like the evolution of web development. And I'd actually love to get like a quick take from people. I'm going through these 9 different rendering strategies and kind of alluding them to the Dante's 9 circles of hell. And what I'm doing is kind of ranking them all, like with these little demon emojis, for SEO, performance, interactiveness, build time, the ability to support dynamic content, and infrastructure, like how complicated is it to deploy. So I'd actually love to hear a couple of comments, maybe in the last few minutes, of how you would look at this. So first example would be like HTML and CSS before there was actually JavaScript. Well, all these things are really good, except you couldn't have any interactiveness and you didn't have dynamic content at all. And I think of dynamic content, especially in comparison to like statically generated pages, where static sites, you have to rebuild them to then get fresh content. And that's a hassle. Also, Fulani said if you have a function that calls headers or cookies, that page route will be dynamic. Fulani, have you seen that in documentation somewhere? I think that's one of the things that like I'm really struggling with, is I'm finding out there's all these details and then I'm finding out finer details by just experimenting and seeing what it gives me. So Michael, it looks like a cool talk. Thank you. Love the Dante theme. Yeah, I want to make it like darker and stuff too. We'll see. So from there, then we add JavaScript. And then JavaScript, we potentially sacrifice a little bit of SEO. This is all relative too, because it depends on what you're doing. But if you're loading in some data that's important for SEO with JavaScript, your performance may go down a little bit because you're loading more JavaScript than you had before. You've now got interactiveness that you didn't have before. Build time stays the same because early on there was no like build. It was just, here's a JavaScript file. There was no build around that. You have some dynamic content, and then infrastructure is pretty simple because you're still just like CDN data, basically. Then we go to server-side rendering, and this is like kind of the traditional Ruby on Rails, PHP, and whatever framework, and then Node.js, and that kind of changed the JavaScript ability. So you get better SEO, you get better performance by doing stuff on the server. Interactiveness, you can have as much JavaScript as you want, although at that point there wasn't a ton that people did. Build time maybe started to get slower because you started to have like npm packages and build processes, or maybe you didn't at a certain point. I don't know. At a certain point you did, and I don't know when that would have been. How old is npm? Do you know?
That's a good question.
npm 2010. Yeah, interesting. So server-side rendering, you'd have full dynamic content because it gets stuff every time the page loads. Infrastructure was a little more difficult because now you actually have to have a server that you didn't have to have before. Then there were single-page apps. SEO went down. Performance went down. Interactiveness went up. Build time probably went down because you had build steps. Dynamic content, yes. Infrastructure, again, a little bit more complicated to have a build system or somewhere to run the build of the site and then probably host a separate backend somewhere. So now you were deploying potentially to 2 different places. You could do it from one, but Static site generators, SEO was good, performance was good, build time super slow, interactiveness depending on what you did was low. I may actually kind of exaggerate that and make it a little bit lower. Dynamic content, actually I would say this would be like a 1 because that's one of the big downsides is having to rebuild to get content. And then infrastructure was probably a little simpler because you had to have something to run a build, but then you just had, in theory, well, it could be the same because you could still have a separate server to do stuff too, depending on what you do. Anyway. Then there was hybrid frameworks to kind of mix stuff out. There was incremental static regeneration. And then the last one is server components. So anyway, if anybody has any thoughts on like how they would rank or other things they would compare those 9 different strategies, would love to hear some thoughts on that. Yeah, Falani, if you have any details on the page for caching, revalidating, what's it? You said headers and cookies. Ooh, okay, maybe here. Following table. Holy shit. Router cache, full route. Okay. Wow. So I think this is saying if you access headers or search params, you're opting out of caching.
That makes sense. I'm looking at, I've been quiet digging through the Clerk. I've been digging through the Clerk, like
documentation.
Their well, not even their docs. I'm just going through the source code.
Oh, for the provider?
And they appear to do, they get some information out because they do have to extract. Yeah, they require next headers here. So they're using those header values or some cookies or something that they're extracting, that they're inserting as a part of their as a part of their authentication flow.
Okay.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. Falani kind of was saying the same thing. I think kind of around the same time I found this page of anything using cookies, header, search params in pages, then you're opted out of cache. So cookies, header, search params, all opt out. Then let's see. So there's difference between, this is really interesting. Router cache, full route cache, data cache, and React cache. I don't know if I fully know where the data cache is.
Is that a fetch thing?
Oh, that's probably fetch. Yeah. I think so. I think you're right. Yeah. So fetch options next tag. I don't even know what all these things are.
I think nobody knows what all these are. Even the people at Next.js, some of them just showed up one day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that looks right.
Okay, so you can define const revalidate. Revalidate can be, you can have dynamic or revalidate, and they have different options that they can be. Then you have cookies, header, search params. So we're saying to go back to this, confirm page reference params. So did the preferences page. So they were built dynamic. Yep. Then we had the dynamic routes, which are then not cached. They're opt out. And then we had the Clerk nested routes, because Clerk does something at the layout level that accesses headers, is what you said, right? Headers.
Yeah, it grabs it grabs some headers.
Cool. That makes a heck of a lot more sense now.
It only took like 45 minutes, but we got there. We finally figured it out.
So one of the things I could do is I could optimize. Yep, Falani. Yeah, that's exactly what I will do when I get the admin dashboard up. Is call the revalidate path anytime I do a mutation. Yep, exactly. Now I still have a question of can you call revalidate path for multiple pages? I guess you could, right? Like you just
could.
call
You just have to call them one after the other. Yeah.
Okay. So that's good to know. So we could do that. And then also, so I will do that in any mutation. And then there was also something else I was going to say, but I can't remember now. Oh, one of the things we could do is, well, I don't know how this works. So for can I turn my dynamic route / deals into static pages and then have any future deals be ISR?
Yeah. So you do that with the generate static params function, and they may have. I think that what we're seeing is this revalidate path is a newer way to do the thing that essentially I'm doing on the server. I think that generate static params it might still be the way that you do things properly, but basically at build time it pulls the data, or in dev like it pulls it every time, but at build time it'll pull the data that you specify, and then it will generate a static page, and then at the point that you want to invalidate that, then you have to use your revalidate path and it will fetch the new data and build a new static page.
So would I do that by calling revalidate path on the new URL that doesn't exist yet?
I have done that. It may also just work if you go to the page. So I think if it's incremental static regeneration, it will do the if you hit a route, it will check whether or not that data exists. And then if you get a 404, you return a 404, or it doesn't find that data within the
cache or the existing
within the
pages.
Generate static param stuff, then it will return the 404. So I believe it tries to hook in.
Fulani's saying it won't be part of the new cache. Yes. So the idea of ISR is like if you have 1,000 pages, you build 50, and then when they come to those other ones, they build those on demand. So it does some sort of check to see if that exists. Does ISR in that sense exist in this new, like, is there an ISR property that you can pass with generate static params?
I think that it is by default ISR. I might be incorrect about that.
Okay. That would be interesting. Generate static params. Specifically, the function is cache responsive dynamic routes.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what this is. So you generate a static page and then you can incrementally regenerate it.
So if it hits a 404, it will first go check to see if that thing is in the database?
I might be incorrect about that, but
yeah, I'm not sure.
Because it returns, well, it would throw an error is I think what I'm thinking. So at the point at which because you're making like a fetch request in generate static params or whatever you're doing, like pulling and then you could return nothing and then it would throw an error.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like in ISR before all of this, I think ISR knew what all of your paths were.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to build them all until it came in. So at least when it came in, it would know, hey, this is a path, but I don't have content for it yet, so go and get it. Versus, I don't know what it did if you just added a new blog post.
Let's put it this way. I always act when I'm working with Next.js like it's not going to work unless I do the thing.
Yeah.
So like I in in my projects, like we add a show and then I immediately revalidate that path as a just in case.
Yeah.
And I think that's a low enough stakes thing that it's not a big deal to do, but it's annoying that it's difficult to get a real answer.
Yeah. That's funny. I feel like I got answers to so many things today. This is one that's still a little bit open. So this is, yeah, that's all older.
Should return an array of objects, each property. What about a 404? All posts besides the top 10 will be a 404 dynamic params.
What does it generate static params?
Okay, so generate static params, yeah. It appears that it will return a 404. I could even just test this /show/.
Why is this not letting me find this in? Oh, it's because it's not in the pages. Why does it assume pages by default? I don't like that. Using combination with all that makes sense.
So let me grab this link.
Oh, I navigate on a route. The corresponding layout and pages are generated during validation, revalidation. Sorry, let me call it again. It says, yeah. I wonder where this revalidation occurs. So it says during revalidation ISR, generate static params will not be called again. It replaces get static paths. Yes. Will be called.
So, okay. So get static params, what it will do is get a giant list. Like the goal of the function is to get a big list of routes to
of all the routes.
Generate for.
Yeah.
And then if you hit that endpoint, or if I were to jump in and get a new route that doesn't exist, I believe it just runs it for that one individual route. I'm not totally sure how that.
But I don't know. I don't know how it would do that though, because it doesn't, like, Next.js doesn't just magically know a database call to get a thing by ID.
I've realized my mistake. So get static params returns a giant list of parameter or of paths, basically.
Right. Yep.
And then you have to fetch the data within your function. And so you're still programming. Basically, you pass in and say, hey, here's the path, or here's the slug, or whatever you want to call it, the ID.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to call your data from within your component. But generate static params in this case. So for you, at build time, you could pull a big list of all of the deals that you want to be included, and it would pre-build all of those as static pages.
Right. Then
when you go to try and query for data, so if you went to a new page like / new deal,
it will just run that logic.
Yes. And so you're responsible for handling for, like, if this didn't exist, return the not found page from like Next navigation.
Yeah.
But it will grab it and it
will go and you can have it try to let you. Okay. And then that'll be cached. So I can prove that. I won't do it right now, but I can prove that later on by running the similar test of, like, do a build, run it locally, add a new thing, and then see if it pops up or not.
Yeah.
Okay. I can test it out. I actually will. I'm going to add that as a issue. Feature request. Static pages for deals using ISR. As a user, I would like to see cached pages for individual deals as often as possible. Right now, deal pages are not cached. I would like to use, what do we call that? Get static params?
Get static params.
Build these pages statically and then cache. Then newly added pages will be built and added on demand after the fact. This will improve performance and lead to less database calls. Right now, each deal page is hitting the DB every time. Okay. Cool. And let's add another issue for feature revalidate homepage on deal approval. As an admin user, after approving a deal, it should be listed in the /deals page. And that should be deals page on approval. We should call revalidate path on /deals after approving a deal in the admin dashboard. This will ensure that newly approved deals are immediately visible on the page. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, Filani, you mentioned you can add this line to layout to set how often you want to revalidate by passing in the revalidate or exporting the revalidate. Yes. So we talked about that a while ago. That was the option that I came up with now to solve this. So, or in the meantime. Yep. Cool. Well, I am going to do a video on Next.js caching now because I feel infinitely more confident.
Hopefully it's shorter than
this whole stream.
This whole thing was.
My guess is yes. Sweet. Okay. I think I am going to run.
Sweet.
I may raid people over to, let's say, bald bearded builder. I'll send people over to BBB thinking, or I called you thinking because I was going to say thank you, Duncan.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks for joining, man. I appreciate it. This helped really get down to some detailed answers, which I really needed.
I'm glad we could crawl through Next.js documentation together. Not
as easy as it seems. Cool. I'm going to send the raid over on Twitch in a second, but thank you all. Appreciate it. And Duncan, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, man.
See ya.